Welcome to the Phygital Dish, where we serve up fresh insights on how technology is bridging the gap between physical and digital, creating seamless and personalized interactions for businesses and consumers alike. Let's dig in. How's it going this afternoon?
It is going well. It's freezing. It's absolutely frigid.
Have you warmed up a little bit? Hey, and we're twins today. We're saying
no, no. It's not as cold as it was the last couple days, but it doesn't matter. That's right. I can't get warm. My toes are freezing. I'm on an outside wall. My office is, so it's 10 degrees cooler, but we'll get by. It
is getting warmer here, but it's like a false. It's false fronted. I'm sure it is. I think there's probably something hiding on the other side. So, but it's not snowing in Atlanta anymore. That's what I've been told. So that's a good thing.
A foot of snow in New Orleans, and I think it was Orlando was 40 something degrees, and our high here was warmer than theirs. It is bizarro world out there.
It's bizarro world.
And then we were chatting on kind of what we were going to be talking about today, and I had it in my notes of Ivy wants to talk about lead. Surely that can't be right. So can you set the record straight on what we're talking about today?
Luckily, it's not right. And capital letters versus lowercase letters are going to help this conversation.
Okay, context matters. Got it.
So context matters. So we're gonna spend today actually talking about LED. Light emitting diodes. So yes, and don't worry for all of our listeners. I'm not gonna go super geek and talk about how they're created or what their outputs are. We're gonna keep it at a good level here to try to give everybody a good understanding. So
let's do it.
But I'll actually ask you now that you know the topic. What do you think of first when I say direct view LED? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Direct view LED. So direct view, is that the backlighting? Is that the backlighting of the LED?
That's interesting. Yeah.
So for me, I'm a TV nerd, kind of a snob on it a little bit. I've upgraded anything mostly in my living room to OLED, right? And super thin, super great. It sucks a lot of power, but an amazing picture. Everybody had LEDs before. It was either half backlit, direct. I don't know if direct view is what I'm talking about, but now you've got QLED and micro LED and nano and all of these things.
Well, there you go. You've got all the buzzwords. So let's get through some of those, right? Let's clean up some of that mess. But what, I think that's actually a great place to start, right? So you just talked about something that I think caused some confusion over many years inside of the market space that actually has now taken on a life of its own. And it's this idea of backlighting or enhancing a television or a screen or an LCD with LED. They're very bright, they're long life, but that's actually pointing them sideways. They're creating no viewing structure. They're just light enhancement.
Got it.
Right? Contrast enhancement, brightness enhancement. However, direct view LED, and for all of us old guys with white beards, we used to just call this LED, but now it's called direct view LED or DVLED. It's actually where the lights, where the diodes are facing you. And they are facing you in a matrix of red, green, blue, and sometimes white, and they collectively make an image. And so when you stand back from that direct view LED, you see the image. And the best example of this everybody knows about is Times Square. Right. There's thousands and thousands of diodes. They're all facing you when you walk down the street on Broadway and 7th. And from a distance, from 30, 40, 50 feet, they look magical, right? They look fantastic. The picture is amazing. But what has now happened is the things that are in Times Square might be 50 or even 100 feet away. Now we are bringing direct view LED into spaces where it might be 2 feet or 4 feet or
Right.
even 6 feet away.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, so I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge to drop in this. I'm actually interested in it because, leading up to NRF, I actually talked a little bit about, how Times Square captures attention, and it's a lot of technology put into those screens, and they've had to get smarter about how they've updated them over the years, including things like selective media for specific groups, or if the number of people changes. Dynamic lighting shifts based off of, is it cloudy, is it, or power consumption or heat or all of that. So there's a lot of technology that goes into it. And if you think about it, I don't have the white beard yet, but if you think about LED from old, your first flat screen TVs, like the really good ones you were talking about, you had plasma, then we went to LED, then LCD, and we have OLED, and we have all these things. So that's what a lot of people probably know them for. And I'm actually interested in, what I think is because of lifespan and use case and power draw and all that. But what are the other reasons why you would use an LED versus LCD in these locations? And where people getting the most benefit from it? So we've skipped past an appetizer. Let's just get into the main course. I want to know about.
Let's just get right. We're bringing out the big plates, right? We're bringing out Yeah, LED. I mean, let's cut to the chase, right? One of the chases with LED is historically it has been more expensive. And
LED has been more expensive.
LED has been more expensive, and to the tune of X times more, right? It's not just like, oh, that's 10% more. It's 4 to 5 times more for the same type of thing. And some of that is the way the technology is built. Some of it is the process of actually bringing it into the countries where you're going to use it, versus the country that might be manufacturing it. So historically, to some extent, LED found its place in places where people wanted big show, big pieces, right? Stadiums and football areas or arenas, but also what some people in the industry call spectacular. So the openings of malls and the walk where you walk in, or even when you're in big cities, when you're walking into large office buildings, maybe in the lobby, that's still a very common use case, right? And it's delivering big messaging. It might be delivering advertising. And then you think like airports and things. These are places where the cost of the LED, although still high, was still something that was suitable for the number of people that were going to consume it.
Yeah.
What's really happened, which is why I think this conversation is so interesting, is we have found a path now, partially just because of the laws of technology, where as time goes on, right, everything gets better, faster, bigger, but it's going to get relatively cheaper or less expensive over time. People have found ways to implement LED at scale across multiple locations, or even hundreds of locations, by utilizing the flexibility of shape and size of LED. And this is really key. So what's the in your home, what's the largest TV you have?
110.
There you go, 110. So you have 110 piece of glass. What's the smallest TV you have?
I think the smallest TV I have, and I'm ashamed to say this, is probably 65, and it's on my back patio, and it replaced a really small TV. But what you just talked about is so appropriate, because I can't go buy that TV anymore for that cheap. Right. Now that TV is the price of a 65-inch TV that's got smart all this stuff built in. I didn't want a big one, and I was honestly scared. I didn't think it was going to fit where I put it. That's probably the kids' rooms, I even think, have like 55 inches in there, because it was cheaper than anything else. And why go small, right? If it's why go small?
Well, and you even in reality, you could go all the way down to like the LCD and that's associated with like your phone or whatnot, right? Here's the thing.
That would be probably my wife's phone is
Right.
probably the smallest one in the house. Yeah.
But in nearly all those cases, maybe not the monitor that you and I are sitting in front of right now, mine's a stretch, but in almost all those cases, they are a 16 by 9 or near 16 by 9 ratio, right? This is one of the powers of LED that people have now latched onto and found real value in being able to find the way to make this more mainstream. LED comes in a very specific shape, right? Half meter, 1 meter blocks, or meter and a half, 1 meter tall by a half meter wide, or, there's variations based on manufacturer. However, you can assemble those blocks or Lego pieces as you wish. So you can make big long strips, or you can make small boxes, or you can make at a recent show, someone who had taken a table, a product table that was 4 foot by 4 foot square. They had wrapped underneath the table about 1.5 feet high and 4 foot wide on each side.
Yeah.
Well, so that's a super cool. You can't do that with a traditional glass screen, right? We are getting into shelf edge. We use a lot of shelf edge and header edge and whatnot, but there is limitation to that 16:9 shape.
Right.
The LED gives you a lot more spatial awareness to the way you want to design. It also can dramatically impact the cost, right? In a positive way, not always negative. You can actually kind of down tick what you're doing, still get a high output, and then get something that's quote unquote in budget.
Yeah, like that, like what I've seen wrapped around, corners, or like what you said, the spectacular views, those things.
Right.
I don't want to steal thunder for maybe a dessert or anything, but so Resorts World in Vegas, or the Sphere, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that LED?
Oh, it sure is. It's multiple forms of LED actually, and it's a great example. So this actually brings us, and I'll remind myself of what I said at the beginning, which is that I'm not going to go too far down the technical track, but I'll go a little ways. There's one very important piece of LED, which is one of the biggest changes that's come about recently, and it's the light emitting diodes. The distance between them is called pixel pitch, and that distance determines the distance away from the screen that you have to be for your eye to be able to see that as an image versus just as a little tiny, speck of light, a little tiny red light or blue light or green light or whatnot. That pixel pitch has decades ago was very wide. If you think about Times Square and you think about the outside of a Resorts World the building, right? Those are like 30 millimeters. The diodes are, they're literally inches apart. And then if you think about the inside of the Sphere, I'm not actually sure what the pixel pitch is in there. I did know at one time, but it's much, much narrower, so you don't have to be as far. But then you think about some of the spectaculars inside of Resorts Worlds or in the new Fontainebleau in Vegas. There's 2 millimeter, 1 millimeter pixel pitch. And now the technology, you made reference just briefly to it, this idea of micro or mini, those are two different categorizations. Those are even narrower. They're sub 1 millimeter. You're getting down to where they're actually putting technology, multiple pieces of technology inside of the width of your hair. Which is insane. let's be honest, it's insane.
Yeah, I
mean,
you're talking about the screens have gotten better, faster, stronger, as they've aged, which is opposite of us. I think I've gotten slower, bigger. but that also, when you're talking about that small, I stood up. I know this is different, but I'm a nerd. So I walked up, just got as close as I could to my OLED TV in my living room. Yeah. And I can't, I mean,
No.
near imperceivable. But
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
but I
yeah,
have
yeah,
seen like some of the
yeah.
the old planar screens, the old format screens like that we would look at, that
Yeah.
they were pretty far apart. You get close
Oh,
up to them,
yeah.
you're getting blurred away. You're seeing red, green, blue,
Oh,
but you back
yeah,
up
yeah,
10
yeah,
feet, right? You got that
yeah.
distance. You're not
Yeah.
seeing it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but again, the inside of the width of a hair, that sounds pricey to me. That doesn't sound like your
that
cost-effective LEDs.
That you are correct. They are not the cost-effective LED.
Yeah.
Now with everything, we expect it to come down, but what that's actually done, and I think this is a very interesting piece of this, because that micro LED has now hit the market, and it's this premier level of resolution and contrast, and it's, by the way, it's gorgeous when it's like when they really are doing that. It's really beautiful. That has relieved some of the pressure on the 2.5, 3, 3.5, 6. And so that is allowing places to say, hey, this is acceptable now. Most of the people who are going to see it are going to see it from 6 to 10 feet. That's going to look great. I think I can use that now. And the other benefits of LED start to weigh in. Things like long life. You mentioned it, right? The lifetime of LED is very potentially north of 10 years. The ability to do indoor and outdoor with the same type of technology, they're built slightly differently, but and get that kind of lifespan. The high brightness you talked about, the variability of light management. This gets into our core world, and you and I on a regular basis walk down this path where we know we're walking parallel. We don't always cross. Right? We always cross because there's network, and we always cross because we're in the same building from a technology perspective with our customers, but our technologies don't always cross. However, this is where the value proposition of some things we've talked about previously and will on this podcast, things like managed power and managed network consumption. This is where LED begs itself for that extended management profile, because you can naturally extend the life of that device even beyond what you could do with just generally managing an LCD. And so our worlds, the pure IT world and the visual digital world, really collide in that management profile of a device like an LED.
Yeah, a little care goes a long way, right?
It's a little care goes a long way.
You got to die. You got to go to the doctor. You got to go to the dentist, and so that goes a long way. And then it goes back to the thing of it fits into your ecosystem. So maybe the power unit that you have out there can now see this LED is supposed to be drawing this much power. It's overdrawing, underdrawing, or the building is not getting clean power to these devices. You may be able to see the screen. It may look good, but it's gonna. Not getting clean, efficient, effective power over a long period of time kills devices. Same with, you can have the network feed in statistics or temperature sensors or gauges or all these things feed into the environment to help make these kind of, spot changes inside the environment. So it's really about making sure that all of your technology can talk together when it makes sense to talk together.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So what are some of the areas? So just, if you think about LED, then, you've kind of, I think we get it. I think we get it. We're maybe smart enough to talk about LED now. But what are some of the areas that now that we've got these awesome, cool, beautiful ones, and it's pushed down the price, right? Maybe as some of these other ones making it better, cost competitive. What are some of the areas you're seeing that LED is breathing new life into areas of retail, restaurant, other places that they were forgotten? They couldn't be leveraged, couldn't be utilized. How is LED just helping breathe new life into underserved areas of retail?
Yeah, I'll give you two kind of answers there. One very very directed to your question. one more of kind of that sweet treat dessert style as we kind of get towards the end of this conversation. The one that really is a driver is in those areas where high-end retail or higher end product was
Mm-hmm.
using more traditional LCDs 5, 10, 15 years ago. LCD is now driving. So good examples are high-end car dealerships. High-end, what might be a high-end purchase of a boat or a motorcycle or a
Mm-hmm.
play toy, an adult play toy, from the perspective of outdoors and big buy and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The second area though is in areas where fixturing is getting enhanced with digital, and it may not be enhanced through a traditional touch or a device embedded for gathering data. The cosmetics world,
Ah, yeah.
the perfume world, the counter in the big box stores, in the Macy's and Targets of the world, where a brand is trying to set themselves apart from what is now a landscape of fixture nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those brands, they've done a very good job of creating brand loyalty and recognition. Now they're enhancing that with the digital profile to up that brand. The Sephora's of the world, right? That's a great example.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other place I would say that it's coming to play is standing apart in a specialty launch. So we talked a little bit about that idea of a 4-foot table with a wraparound, but think even smaller, right? A pedestal where you're
Mm-hmm.
showing a very specific item, wrapping that pedestal in LED. Yes, is there an expense associated with it? Absolutely. But can you rotate the content, maybe get 3 or 4 launches out of it? Yes, it's something that can be very valuable. Those are where you're starting to see people say, hey, I don't need one 15 by 10 foot, large display outside. I need 75 pedestals in 75 stores,
Yeah.
but I need them to
Yeah.
work all the time because then they start to be part of the retail media network environment.
Mm-hmm.
They start to become part of the brand enhancement or product launch environment. They take on a different life, and that technology really lets them do that. We
Yeah.
also see it in
Yeah.
shoe retailers as well, as a good example.
Yeah, that's a good point, because once you, again, it's all about, once you start making that investment, you want to have that investment pay for itself, right? So when
Yeah.
you're talking about building it into retail media networks, you got to be very mindful of the placement. Where are those going? So is it on,
Yeah.
stanchions that are outside? Is it at a pump at a C store? So where is it at? Where is it going to get the most eyes on it?
Yep.
Where you're
Yep.
not going to have a whole lot of you ever touching it, but you're going to get those eyes on it, right? It's a game there of proper placement in underserved areas. So that's interesting. I think
Yeah.
I know more about that. Have you ever wanted to just, like, we were in Vegas, I don't remember when it was, but we were outside at an event with a bunch of people, and yes, we're having good conversations. Yes, we're having food, and could be a couple drinks and that. But I'm just stuck staring at the wall. That it's just a whole screen, and it was like a football field wide, and I'm just staring there. We're all just I'm just a monkey staring at this screen up here. But it's so cool when you see this giant screen, and the beauty, it goes and then it cuts around obstacles and doors, and then the picture just keeps going, and it's like, this is amazing. This is awesome. And why can't I just do this at my house? Yeah,
exactly. The one that always gets me is in New York at 42nd and 8th, 41st and 8th, somewhere in there. There's a building, right? The building's on the corner like normal. And on top of the building, they've built a cube of LED, but they've turned it like 45 degrees to the building. And every time I look at it, I think, is that that's the LED. Like,
yeah,
I just stare at it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've seen it 500 times. I should know how it works by now. So
it's awesome though.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
cool.
But here is the, if you really look, if you look at the magic crystal ball and you say where's LED heading, right? So this is one of those pieces you actually, I thought you might get there and you were so close. We started talking about people starting to use it outdoor, indoor, or at the pump or whatnot. I believe there is a bit of a holy grail that much of the digital industry has talked about when LED becomes something that can be used in the drive-through space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because that creates a long life, high profile experience combined with a very prolific digital column for engagement as you're driving into that space.
Yeah.
What we've done in drive-through with LCD is fantastic. The life is getting better, but you're going in years. You're adding years to that technology, not just months or even days, right? So that's the piece of the puzzle that when you get really into the deep dark secrets of the digital signage space and people start to have those conversations late at night over a cocktail, it's usually about how do we get LED to work at drive-through?
It seems like it'd be a no-brainer, right? And
it does.
As those other screens go out, and you imagine the landscape or the real estate of how long the drive-throughs are getting to keep people. You got a lot of real estate to work with to keep a person's captive audience. You also have to play the devil's advocate of, do I really want something blaring in their faces the whole time? I could see it.
And cost and resolution do come into play, and so I didn't touch on the technical aspects of resolution versus pixel pitch. Anybody's welcome to give me a call, and I'll put on my professor hat for a day and
hey, look, we'll take calls and see if people want to do that on the next podcast. We could do one just on that, and that's completely fine. But I think we've gone through the rabbit hole as much as we can today on our talk on not lead. Capital E, capital D, light emitting diodes. So, I appreciate that, Ivy, for filling us in on that. It's such an interesting concept. It's one of those things that you see every day, but you don't realize how different use cases it is. And there's some complexity behind it, but it's also really, really cool when it's done really, really well. So appreciate you for sharing all that today.
Yeah. Thanks, Court. I appreciate it.
All right. Until next time, my friend.
That's all right. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning into the Phygital Dish, where the physical and digital worlds collide, transforming businesses and the consumer experience. We hope today's episode left you full with insights you need to stay ahead in this evolving landscape. But don't forget to subscribe, share, and bring your appetite next time for another serving of expert advice and innovations from the intersection of technology and business. Until next time, here's to staying connected, staying hungry for innovation, and keeping it phygital.